Hey everybody! Oh boy, we forgot to adjust the camera, didn't we? Okay, welcome to Wine Wednesday with the Whisperer. How are y'all? Happy New Year. How's everything with ya? I hear an echo. I'm not sure who it is, but make sure to mute your tabs if you're in here. Doing a open chat here tonight, so it's just kind of a free for all. And I think Dan and Lucy are with me so far. Hello, Dan and Lucy. How are we?
Hello, hello, hello.
I think Lucy's busy doing a water change, so she'll be here soon. Anyways, how is everybody today? I'm pulling up the old Facebook to see who's joining us from Facebook. And if you do, hello. Like I said, just doing an open chat. I went to the wine store and they had all of these. Gotta turn that down. I got they had everything on sale for New Year's Eve, so I was so excited and stocked up a bit. And I got this Klein. Should have Googled how to pronounce it before we started, but it's actually one of the better ones that I've tried. So I'm really excited about that. So I've got my wine in hand. I'm ready to talk seahorse and coral. Apparently we're gonna have a little new lava rock in the picture today. That's all right. It's good. Dan, what do you got? What are
Yes.
the big plans for the new year with you? Do you have
Well,
any
my only plan at the
resolutions? Go ahead.
resolutions, no. Um, I gave up on those long ago.
Right.
Um, I'm currently working on my piebalgs, trying to get them up. I was supposed to put them up Monday, but the way things happened, I didn't get them up. So, as we speak, I'm working on the pics so I can post them.
So we're looking. You said we're looking at seeing them pretty soon, though, right?
Well, hopefully, as we're talking, I can finish these up and then post them immediately after we're done.
Hey guys, you hear that? Go check out Seahorse Source for the new piebald pictures that'll be up. New seahorses up for grabs. That's always exciting. And Lucy, I think, is still busy, so we'll wait to hear about her New Year stuff. Let's see. I don't know. I'm kind of waiting on anybody else to join, seeing if anybody joins. I'll tell you what. When I was talking to you earlier, Dan, I actually found the article that we were discussing, and it was reef builders, and they're saying that the never before seen damselfish collected in Madagascar. And I don't know if I can actually show you guys on the screen, but go look at reef builders. But it's this little damselfish, and it has certain characteristics that make them believe that it's different. And so I was just talking to Dan earlier about how many new species we've found. I wrote the article. In case you haven't seen it, go check out. It says dragons are real, and it's an article about all of the findings we found and things that have happened with cygnethids in 2018. But it amazes me how many new things they're coming up with. And when we're with piebalds, Dan, can you explain? I know you've explained it before on this channel, but I'm just wanting to refresh memories here. What makes a piebald exactly? It's not a different species, it's an erectus. What makes a piebald a piebald?
Well, technically, a piebald could be any species. These happen to be erectus, but what makes a piebald unique is that there's some type of defect in their chromatophores, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, to
Mm-hmm.
where their colors aren't uniform, and they can be piebald by definition is two tones, but in reality, sometimes there are two to four different colors that are randomly mixed up and don't appear as a regular seahorse in terms of their coloration. And it's a trait that can come and go in these particular individuals. And sometimes they're really striking. They hold that pattern forever, and they look really cool. Sometimes they change back, look like a normal seahorse, and sometimes they'll go back and forth between the two.
And do they just not? I mean, why haven't we figured out yet what causes that? I mean, what causes the changes back and forth? Is it just more science needed, more research needed, or what?
Yeah, we truly don't know why they can go back and forth. You know, I've seen it myself on occasions within our tanks. Um, just like with the coloration of seahorses, sometimes I can move these guys around and manipulate them. And I've played with that just to see. And it doesn't always work, but sometimes it does.
Right. And I just it makes me curious as to all of these things that we haven't figured out yet. I just wish we'd hurry up and figure this stuff out because it fascinates me. But I spend way too much time researching this stuff. Just trying to learn it, and then they change it. Drives me crazy.
Well, there's a lot of things we never figured out. I was married for 35 years and never figured everything out.
I mean, this is truth. This is true. And Holly, hi Holly. I saw Holly said she loves her piebalgs from Dan. And Salty Reef, hi. I see you're in here too. Feel free to jump in if you want. We're just chit chatting. It might be a quick night. I know it's I did not go live last week because I figured everybody would be too busy with the holidays, and I figured tonight might be a slow one. So I just wanted to get up here and do it, but next week we'll get back to some planning and doing specifics. But I know Lucy's somewhere in the background too. And Dan, anything besides the piebalds coming up new? That
Um, well, I still have CUDA available, and I did get a batch of CUDA yesterday, and we'll see if I can have success with this batch. Um, so far, I haven't had big successes. It's been very small survival ships, but I'm hoping now that I'm feeling better, I can really stay on top of these and get this batch to make it.
and when you say that hey K Town, hey Alex, links in the description. Feel free to jump in. We're just chit chatting about what you got going on this year. We're talking about what we did last year and what's coming up this year. What your plans are for this year. So feel free to jump in if you'd like. And with the CUDA, Dan, when you say that, sorry, I'm trying to read this and do this at the same time. Sorry about that. When you say that, I completely just lost what I was going to say. Wow, I really hate that. Okay. When you say you got a batch, that's what it was. I got it back. It came back.
Yep.
Thank you. When you say you got a batch, what that means is that they're not for sale yet. You got them and you're working on breeding them for sale, or they are for sale. What does that mean?
No, when I say a batch, I'm talking about a batch of fry.
Okay.
I mean, I do have CUDA available for sale, but I'm talking about when I say a batch, I'm talking about a batch of fry.
Gotcha.
Juveniles, whatever you want to call them, little bitty guys.
The teeny tots. I gotcha. I hear you. And okay, well, we've covered about everything there. The problem, you guys, is that Dan comes in here to answer questions and be here to support anything that goes on, but I usually have talked to him about an hour before, so I already know everything and I forget what to ask, so I'm sorry. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. But and let's see, I already said hi, K-Town, Alex, everybody. What are you guys up to? I'm curious. I did not make it to Reef Dude stream, unfortunately. I was trying to hurry up and get ready to get on here. But I'm curious what everybody's doing with their reefing this year. If you've got big plans, big setups. Dan, I know you just talked about what you've got going on right now, but do you have any hopes to do anything different in 2019?
Well, for the short term, we're in the process of consolidating and trying to make things easier since things have changed so much here. In the absence of Abby, Abby was the primary caretaker for the seahorses, and roles have changed around. So our primary focus is trying to streamline everything and consolidate it down to where it's manageable, so we have a high degree of success with what we're working with.
Gotcha. I mean, those are very good goals. That's how it should be.
Yeah, everything is spread out now. I've got way too much tankage of what's not being utilized because I just can't handle everything by myself.
Sure.
So, we're shrinking it slightly. Doesn't mean we're not going to have good production. Once in tune, we should have fine production. It's just I probably won't be doing as many great big wholesale orders.
Right. I have a feeling, you guys, that he's playing this down, and that he's gonna come out with this crazy, crazy thing, and we're gonna be like, what? You said you weren't gonna do anything. No, I'm just kidding. Hello, who joined? Who joined? What tank are we looking at?
It's Alex G.
Hey, Alex G.
Hi.
Tell me about your tank. I'm gonna put you up here, broadcast you, whatnot. Tell me about what we're looking at, what you did in 2018, and your plans for 19.
Oh, well, this is my 480 gallon reef tank. So I don't keep seahorses, but I do have a relative. I got a pipefish.
Oh, yay!
So
When did you get him?
I've had this guy for at least 6 months or so.
That is awesome.
So
And he's doing well in the reef setting?
oh yeah, this guy actually handles the current pretty well. I originally bought a pair, but unfortunately the other one did not make it past the first day. But this guy's been hanging in there good, and I just added a couple of mandarins not long ago. So.
And how did you go about, first of all, absolutely gorgeous tank. That is just amazing. I actually did a post on Facebook looking for the best tanks of 2018, and I'm going to have to nominate you now. But
Oh, thank you. That's only the first one. The other one's next to it.
Well, let me ask the question about the first one real quick. Now, how did you actually, you know what? If you'd like to show us the tour, feel free, because my question is, how do you keep the pipefish and mandarins and such fed? Like, do you stock pods? But you might be getting ready to tell me that with the next tank, maybe. Are they connected?
Yeah, so I am a huge believer in trying to keep a fairly, what I'd call a natural system.
Okay.
So this tank has got a very large amount of refuge space, probably compared to a lot of other tanks. So I seeded the system with 60 pounds of live rock from the Caribbean, and then another 60 pounds of live sand. So in my my sand, not only do I have all kinds of different worms, but copepods, amphipods, and I also have several different species of ostracods that live in the sand as well.
Wow.
So, yeah, there's a lot of real estate for pod growth, which is why I put these guys in here, just because they can eat all day and they won't even make a dent.
Gotcha. I mean, and that's if you're going to do it, that's the way to do it. I want to mention too, I really love the aquascape. That is very unique. I love.
Thank you.
So you said you just ordered the rock and that's what you got, or did you pick out the pieces?
This is actually mostly dead rock in this tank. Actually, pretty much everything in this tank was dead rock. Only live sand got put in here.
Okay.
So it was all quarried rock from Florida. There's some Tonga shelf, and then Tonga branch or Fiji branch, whichever name you prefer, and a handful of pieces of Carib Sea life rock in here too.
That is awesome. I'm a branch person. I just love the branching, but the shelves are cool too. I wanted to tell you guys, I'm not sure what's up with the Restream bot. Please ignore it. I don't know what that is. We'll get rid of it. So if he says something rude, I apologize. But anyhow, I'm sorry, Alex. Go on and tell me, show me the next tank. Actually, really quick, can I get a close-up of let's see, I see a clam. I see, oh my gosh, brains. Show me what is This is just a mix of it all, isn't it?
If you want the, well, actually the blues are still, or the whites are still on, but
Oh, sorry.
the orange filter's not looking all that great right now. But no, I got a wide variety of everything. I keep LPS, soft corals, LPS garden. I have
And in your
sea anemone.
I'm sorry. In your LPS garden, is it you don't mix? Is there a torch back there too?
No, there's 5 varieties of
Okay,
frog spawn and 3 varieties of branching hammers. I do have one torch
nice.
coral. It's off by itself.
Gotcha. I just wondered. I know very few people that mix them successfully. So I was like, oh no. Anyways, let me stop interrupting. Go ahead and tour us the tanks. Go ahead. Show us what we got.
So a lot of softies, zoas, just a start of a zoa garden, and then this is more of the high flow section here. So it's more SPS is going to be going in here slowly. Tank's been up for I want to say almost a year and a half now since I started actually putting livestock in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you can't really see. There's one of the mandarins is back there. This is the wreath though.
Yes.
So, and the tank it's 8 feet long, 2 feet tall, and 4 feet front to back.
Wow. And you said that go ahead.
I was gonna say it's a plywood tank. I built it myself.
You built it yourself. Holy moly. And so I know that you probably can't show us, but you said that there's is there a huge refugium underneath or?
Oh yeah, I could take you back to it.
And
I'll
when
show
we're
you this
passing,
tank.
what are we passing? Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
shocked
so this
and
is
amazed. This is awesome. Go ahead.
this is the big tank. This one's 720 gallons. So this is where I keep my non-reef safe fish. I got my puffers,
Oh, he's so cute.
triggers, big angels. This is actually a rescue too. I got him. My LFS called me one night and someone brought him in and he didn't have a tank for him to put meds in with him, and I thought he'd be blind because his eyes were ruptured on the lenses, but he came around after a few weeks and had him ever since.
So you are living proof
So
that clean and good water can cure things. I love the story and I know it happens. I've seen it. So that's awesome. But go on. So this is the non-reef safe bigger tank.
the non-reef safe tank that does have some corals in it, and well, I do keep sea urchins, even though the puffer does try to eat them occasionally and succeeds.
Oh, well,
And
hey.
then there's there's untold tens of thousands of mysid shrimp that are living in here as well. So
Man. And how did you start that population on purpose or did it just kind of happen?
uh, that was the purpose of putting the live rock and the live sand in, is to start getting all that natural
Gotcha.
pod growth going in. Uh, and like I said, there's no live rock that was added to that big tank there at all. It was all dead rock that I put in.
Gotcha.
So
But the
yeah.
mysids, that's amazing. And then yes, please do show us the connections. Oh my goodness. Whoa.
So this is the start of my fish room.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
this is a 265 gallon HDPE tank, and then that feeds partially into this 150 gallon refuge tank, which is the main source of my pods and where all my live rock was put originally. And then that goes over to another 120 gallon where I do my radiant eating. And then my return pump sits back here, and then I pump up to the ceiling, and then this is behind the tanks. I do keep a walking platform back here, so.
Oh, that's so smart. So smart. Go on. Sorry.
That's all right. Ask away on the questions. So this is kind of where I I do most of my maintenance. Everything drains into a central 3-inch drain, and it goes through a big giant U-trap in the bottom, and then it feeds my sump here. So this is going to this goes to my filter sock tray, but I don't really believe in using filter socks most of the time, so there's none in there. And then the drain also gravity feeds my protein skimmer, so there's no feed pump in this, only recirculation, and this is DIY. I built this skimmer.
Okay, all right. I have to interrupt. 2 questions. First of all, why don't you believe in the socks? What's wrong with the socks?
So one of the reasons I don't is very early on in my career of keeping saltwater tanks, I found out the hard way by using canister filters. And if anyone is on here listening knows what a quicksand filter is, or Fluval used to make a fluidized bed filter for saltwater tanks. They were all the rage in the 90s for a very short period of time.
Okay.
They were really efficient biological filters in terms of doing the aerobic part of the nitrogen cycle, but they are not efficient at reducing nitrates out to nitrogen gas. So it used to get really high nitrates. That's why a lot of people refer to them as nitrate factories.
Mm-hmm.
So plus a lot of the pods and other small microbial life, I'd prefer not to filter it out if I can. Just to give an example in here, and I'm trying to zoom in. Those are baby limpets. There's kind of like thousands of them in here now. They're all over the place, and they just came out from a dozen or so that came in the live rock.
That's awesome. So, I mean, it's exactly what you said to start. It's the natural. You're going for natural. I get it now. And the skimmer, you said it's DIY and just recirculating. Can you explain that a little bit more? Like what it?
Yeah. So this gravity feeds it. So there's no the only pumps in here that do anything are a couple of needle wheel impellers. The rest is all gravity.
That is amazing. Now, I have to ask, and feel free to shout it out. Do you have your own channel? Do you have a channel?
Oh, yeah. Alex G's Aquarium.
I will make sure to...
I've been kind of a sidelines watcher on your channel. Unfortunately, a lot of the time you're on, I'm either doing something with my wife or...
Sure.
I've had to go to bed or something.
I hear you, and I want you to tell me about the rest of the tank, but I appreciate you coming at all, and I'll be sure to, link to your channel in the description, and, I welcome you anytime. This is amazing. Can you tell me about the reactors in the back? I've never seen a tank, this is one hell of a system. I'm sorry, but my God, this is it's public aquarium. Anyways, go on.
I think they'd probably put me to shame pretty quick, but it's pretty good sized. So I didn't make my own calcium reactor. I got the biggest Geo that's made. This is a commercial grade, and then it's just got a 20-pound CO2 tank on it. So this takes care of pretty much all my alkalinity and calcium needs. And then I also run an 80-watt UV sterilizer in the tank, which technically is only about a third the size I should need for this system, but it does help out the system, I feel. So
in your quest for the natural setup, you steer clear of socks, but you run the UV not the size that you would typically run it for the usual needs, but just to kind of balance it, right?
If I could have gotten a hold of this was such a good deal, I couldn't pass it up.
Oh, okay.
And the next size up is commercial. I still wouldn't be afraid to run it just because there is literally so much in the way of, the macro life in this tank. It would never hurt anything. If anything, it's whatever it nukes out of there, it probably gets consumed pretty quickly.
Gotcha.
I feel it. I feel it does a better job at being a bit of an oxidizer and killing any kind of algae in the tank. The skimmer really started to kick up a lot when it got added to the system.
Really? That's interesting. So when you added the
Yeah,
UV, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just noticed like the skimmer started getting a lot more dense foam. Like you could kind of see here, like it doesn't really move.
Yeah.
So it's a real dry skim that I pull.
That's great. I mean, this is
Can I
so
interject?
impressive. Go ahead, Dan.
One of the things that a UV does, it also helps break down organic particles, and that's why your skimmers will sometimes show higher production because of the UV filter.
Yeah, that makes sense. One thing I've never really found any good research on it, but I know because UV has a bit of an oxidizing effect, I've also kind of been curious as to whether or not it has the potential to break down any kind of chemical warfare toxins being emitted by corals.
My understanding is some. I'm not. I spoke to an engineer at length last summer, and he explained to me how the UVs, do different things. And what you're saying is true from an oxidation standpoint. It may not completely make them harmless, but what it does do is it breaks chemical bonds so that it makes it easier for filtration to remove that type of stuff.
Okay. Well, it's good to hear that somebody's spoken to somebody that knows more about this than I do, because I had the idea it might work, but I kind of under the school with this system too, is that if things aren't broken, I try not to fix them. So when I put it on, I had the usual like really horrid algae growing in here, and that's kind of why like my refuge tank, I just kind of let things go. And well, let's see, the amphipod population in here is out of control. At night, it looks like there's cockroaches found on the glass.
And that's feeding all your little guys. K-Town Reefer told me to ask about your bioluminescence. Do you know what he's talking about?
So I do. Yeah, I've read a couple articles on Reef to Reef about bioluminescent observations in this aquarium system at night.
Okay.
So if you're not familiar with bioluminescence, it's natural light created by a living organism, mixing a couple different chemical compounds together that they create. They'll flash light. Generally, a lot of it'll be in like a blue to kind of green color. A lot of it'll just kind of show up as like a blue-gray to the human eye at night. But I have witnessed quite a bit of it in this system, and that's what kind of led me to write a couple articles, because, I always thought of that as being more of a deep sea phenomenon rather than shallow water, but obviously the live rock came with some organisms that are bioluminescent, so.
That's awesome. And you said your articles are where?
They're on Reef to Reef.
Okay, cool. And Lucy said she has an article over there too. That's awesome. Lucy, absolutely. I'd love to see a tour of the seahorse tanks. Let's let Alex I know I did interrupt. I'm sorry. What was the thing in the corner, Alex? You were over to right there. Yes. What were you showing us?
Oh, this is my green serpent star.
He's huge.
Yeah, he's still kind of a baby. They can get about 2.5, 3 feet. They can consume fish and everything. I kind of bought it on a hunch. Somebody had said that they had witnessed one being bioluminescent. So I said, oh, heck, I'll try it. And they're really good scavengers too. So unfortunately, this one was not bioluminescent, but I do have some other brittle starfish that live in here that are.
That's awesome. And so, I mean, can you actually see it? Like, under what conditions does it take? Or
really, really dark. generally, you got to let your eyes get used to it. Um, and I don't know if my little lady is going to come out. I fed her last night. I also keep mantis shrimp. I have a yellow spear mantis that lives in here.
Is there anything you don't have besides seahorses, which you need? But go on.
As much as I love to keep seahorses, I really, well, you probably know more than a lot more than I do out of it. Is they do need a little more specialized environment. So
Right, but that's, I mean,
at
honestly,
least,
what I really think is cool about what you're showing us is the fact that you have all of these different tanks with specialized needs. I mean, that's, you've done it in separate tanks. It's really cool. Very cool. And the
Just out
bioluminescence,
of, cur-
that's, go ahead, Dan, sorry.
I was just curious what temperature he keeps the tank at.
I am running. So this temperature holds real steady. Uh, it holds at the heating system will kick on at 76.8,
Mm.
and it'll kick off right around 78. In the summertime, the hottest it gets is right around 80 degrees. And I don't do any kind of cooling because I'm in the basement and it's uninsulated. So generally, the air conditioning vents are enough to keep it at the decent temperature.
And I know
Gotcha.
you were,
Thanks.
I bet I know where you were headed with that, Dan, because, you know, seahorses need the lower temperatures typically. My question for you is, though, I did do a little bit of reading about this. If someone in his situation, say, wanted to do a seahorse tank, does it start causing problems if you keep one, like if you had that many tanks connected? Could you keep one cooler, or does the up and down of temperature cause problems with stuff? Did that make sense? Did I lose Dan?
No, you didn't lose me.
Okay.
It could be done, but it would burn a lot of energy because you're trying to cool and then turn around, you're heating the water back up. So
Better
it'd be
to
kind
just
of a
keep it
waste.
separate. Yeah.
Yeah, the better choice in that would be if it was feasible. It all depends upon where you are and how the system's set up, but it would be more feasible to drop the tank temperature probably 3 or 4 degrees than to try to do that.
And
Yeah, that's I know one of the bigger hurdles with seahorses too is that temperature gradient.
Yep.
and you're aiming for SPS, right? So it's probably we still want to see it on this
Yeah,
channel.
it's
I was just curious how you would do it if you wanted to. But go on. What were you saying?
I was gonna say I'm sure I could. It's one of those things where I look at it and I'm like I would probably almost just set up a system that's just closed or on its own in its own closed environment to maintain temp,
Yeah.
and then just get some little pod harvesters to collect pods. So,
So tell me
but yeah, this is.
sorry.
Ooh,
I
go
really
ahead.
don't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's kind of the overview of the refuge and a lot of this. The only other thing I do just because the system's so large is I heat my tank with a PEX coil with my hot water heater, so I don't use electric heaters in this system.
Oh, well, that's, yeah, because of all the failures and all the problems people had, that's probably a good idea. Now I'm curious, what's your water change schedule, or do you do them?
I really don't do them a whole lot. The most I've ever changed at one time on this system is 100 gallons.
Wow. I was gonna say that'd be a lot of work to do water changes. That'd be crazy. So having
Uh,
that, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say it won't be as bad as you think because when I designed this system, and even though I don't use it, I have a direct connect to my plumbing drain
Oh
with my main
wow.
return,
Wow.
so I could turn some valves and start pumping directly into the sewer.
That is amazing.
And
I mean,
it has a triple redundancy on it to make sure that water can't back flush into it too. So
now how did
yeah,
you said you've been doing this for quite a while. How did you design this first? Did you decide how to set this up? What set all this in motion?
Oh, well, I've been keeping aquariums fresh and salt for right around 20 years, probably. I took a bit of a break with saltwater, and when I was going, well, kind of the end of my college career, because I did work at local fish stores, and I used to do maintenance at people's homes and businesses, and then I had started. I'm originally from Michigan, and then I moved to Illinois 4.5 years ago. So when I moved out here, I decided I wanted to do something on a little different scale, and uh, I will blame my wife for this because I originally wanted a couple of 240-gallon tanks in the main floor, and she would not allow me to drill holes in the floor to put a basement sump in.
It's all her
And
fault.
her
I'm with
exact
you.
well, she told me I could do whatever I want in the basement as long as there's no holes in the floor. So she didn't say anything about size. She didn't say anything about holes to the outside wall of the house. So I was covered.
I bet she is so
But,
thrilled. No. Now, how long did it?
she does enjoy it though.
I'm sure she does. This is amazing. This is. I'm so happy that you came on here to show. This probably is one of the best setups that I've seen. In 2018. This is amazing. And how long did it take you to set all of this up?
I spent 2 years building before I got the tanks any kind of inhabitants in them.
Wow. That's
Because
great.
I hate to pile on top, but a year and a half of when I was building it, I was also going for another degree. So I was
Wow.
doing school at the same time.
And what's your degree in? Just out of curiosity.
Well, I have a bachelor's in information technology, and I got an MBA.
I just
So
figured it was
I
something biology or something. But anyways, go on.
uh, that, it was one of those things that I would have loved to have done it, but I took a different path.
I
So
hear ya.
I play scientist at home, and that's why I part of the reason it's so big is one I could keep a wide variety of animals in a happy environment, and then I also could things like the bioluminescence have really interested me. So I'll get my microscope out and start looking through the sand, and this is my water storage and RO system. So
I have a question about
I get
that
very
too. Sorry.
sure.
With the bioluminescence, as soon as we get finished here, I'm going to check out your articles. I'm very interested because what I knew about it stacked up to about I think last year for Christmas we did a Santa's helper thing on one of the reef groups, and somebody sent me a bioluminescent um, thing that like you like lit up
No,
if you.
probably the
That's about the
yeah.
extent of my knowledge. Go on.
I actually do have a small colony of those dinoflagellates that I keep.
Yeah, that's
I've been actually wanting to do experiments with them. I just haven't had the time lately to set it up properly.
but that's amazing. So my question that I was getting up to is when you started playing with the microscope and trying to see what you were actually doing, learn what you were actually dealing with. Did you like when you found something, how did you know what you were looking at? Are there sites that you used, or did you just
Some of it, I kept a lot of my articles to very general observation,
okay.
as I know that, um, like a good example, so I found a couple different varieties of spaghetti worms, or Medusa worms that were bioluminescent, a brittle starfish. I observed some isopods at the very beginning of this system before the amphipods took over that also were showing a bioluminescent glow. Uh, to be honest, the majority of it has escaped me because
Sure.
uh, I'll get a petri dish, and I'll take a scoop of sand, and literally part of my research I talk about in my article was taking a cup of sand, putting it in a flat tray, and running a stick over it in the complete dark. And then if I touched something that lit up, I'd have to stop, turn a red light on, and then see if I could separate that sand to a petri dish, and then try to look at it and see if I could get it to go again, which these animals don't have an unlimited supply of their bioluminescent compounds. So once they kind of burn it out, they kind of recharge. So it's an interesting form of research, and a lot of it that I've been noticing, my current camera is just not sensitive enough.
Gotcha.
I could barely pick it up with my eyes if it's just right. Because I have some videos that accompany the articles, and they're all still photography that's been stitched together to form a video.
Well, I want to see all of it. I can't wait to go look. Really quickly, I want to say to all of the comments going past us as I talk, right, as I question and blah, 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 just to let you know, Lucy has great answers. Thank you, Lucy, for handling the comments. And back to Alex, I wanted to know, because I plan to go research your research because I think it's so cool, and I'm so glad that you came. But I'm probably going to have to ask you to come back on as a guest and tell us more.
No problem.
I'm curious. Out of all of these things that you've done with all of these different tanks, which one is your, like, which fish, coral, what's the one that really just you love, that your passion? I know you love it all, but if you had to pick. Which one's your favorite? Your fish, your coral, which one?
Well, I'd have to say, fish-wise, the porcupine puffer.
That was waving at us. Yes, go ahead.
Both of the puffers are probably right up there, because this little guy, if we get to feeding time, maybe I'll throw some food at him. He'll spit water at me, and I do feed him with tongs just because these two have actually bit each other accidentally while feeding, so I have to be careful when I feed them.
Wow.
Good. It's a good thing they have very stretchy skin, as a lot of other fish. And sadly, this guy a few weeks ago, he almost ate him because this little clown trigger decided he wanted to steal the shrimp from the puffer, and he got sucked halfway into his mouth.
Oh, and
I managed. It was a little freak out moment. I kind of panicked and lifted down the bottom of the puffer, and luckily he didn't bite down. He injured the jaw on the trigger, but it pretty much healed up after a few weeks. He couldn't close his jaw for a couple of weeks.
Oh.
So he got lucky, because if he would have bit down, I mean, this guy could take a frozen cocktail shrimp and bite it in half. So there's a lot of jaw pressure, just force behind that fish when it's feeding.
Dan, I'm thinking you should do puffers. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, but they're so cool.
Hey, what do you do when you go away?
Yeah.
Most of the time, if I go away, I have a couple different types of feeding regimens. There's pellets on automatic feeders. And then for the big guys, I mean, he could go a few days without having a bigger meal, but you might notice there are some smaller fish in this tank, and I have tried to add additional ones, and he has eaten a few of them, unfortunately. Generally, though, I'll get my LFS to, I'll just arrange with him to come over, or if I'm out of the house and the wife's home, I'll just give her some bigger food that could be broadcast fed, and he'll get some.
Gotcha.
And then I keep a emergency kit with written instructions on hand.
Nice.
With emergency contacts. There's a backup generator and a transfer switch. It's manual because I don't lose power often. Battery operated air pumps.
That's amazing.
With enough batteries for them and extras. Just a multi-absorbent pad just in case. A knife. A few little things. And then, like I said, I have good written instructions. So if something happens, anybody can do it. I mean, my first priority is always just get air into the tank with the battery operated air pumps. The tank can survive for a long time. It's on multiple electrical circuits. It's fed from 220 amp circuits. So, and like I said, I do have a propane backup generator available too.
Do you think that this is that's mainly because you stayed with such natural? Like, do you dose anything? Do you do anything extra, or this tank runs itself basically?
Well, beyond the calcium reactor, I have been dosing just because I've been testing, and I know they're not the most accurate of kits to use, but I've been doing potassium and strontium tests as well.
Okay.
Beyond, generally my big one's ALK, and I keep my ALK right around 8.0. Calcium's always run real well. It has been running high in this tank. It runs at like 500, but I've tried to lower it a few times, and it just hasn't wanted to cooperate. So I don't fight it. Nothing's showing bad signs. But other than the potassium, the strontium, which are very low doses, I want to emphasize that you got to be real careful with some of those. It's all the calcium reactor, a little bit of some trace elements, and that's pretty much all I've been doing. I do need to go and do an ICP test on this tank just to see if anything else is throwing out of whack, but I keep it pretty simple.
Do you test magnesium at all?
Yes. I'm usually running about 1350 to 1440.
Gotcha. Lucy, I wanted to say, if you want to show the seahorse tanks, get in here and show them. Lady, anytime you want, get in here and do it. Come on. And hello to everyone coming in and talking. I can tell you now, Alex will be a guest again because this stuff is so cool. With the magnet, to be completely honest, I am not very good with calcium reactors because I've not used one, so I don't have the information. But like, I see a clam, I see things that your current numbers have to be running well because of that calcium reactor, right? I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yes. So just to give you an idea, so I did not have this calcium reactor until I got it, I want to say in like spring of 2018, I finally made the purchase. So to give you an idea of the consumption in this tank, I was dosing Fritz RPM for my ALK and calcium.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to maintain my consumption, I was dosing 3 cups of alkalinity and 3 cups of calcium a week. And when I jumped to the 4th cup a week, I knew it was time to move on to a reactor because it's just not cost effective to dose liquids at that point.
Right. I have a couple of more questions for you, if you don't mind, and if you do have to go, it's fine because I plan to ask you to come back. But Lucy, are you in here now? Let me switch this over. Lucy wanted to give us a quick tour.
Yeah.
Okay, and Lucy is.
So the kid might be super noisy.
Your kids are noisy?
Yeah, they might be super noisy.
That's all right. We don't care. We just want to see the tanks. Let me get you back to. Oh my gosh, I just lost everything. Here we go. Hang on, I'm getting there. I have to remember. I wish Dave was in here. I need Dave to show me how to present. Okay, it should be Lucy. You're on. Go, Lucy. Show us and Alex, just give me a sec, okay?
No, not a problem.
All right, everyone we're focused on Lucy now.
My girl, I put stickers on the camera, in fact. My girl, I've put stickers on the camera of the computer.
You have to put the camera on the computer? There we go. Okay. All right. So what are we looking at?
The main display.
This is the main seahorse display.
Non, pousse-vous, Jade, pousse-toi.
Is the big pink thing in the background, is that artificial or a macro? Upper right.
The red stuff?
In the upright corner.
Yeah, it's fake.
Okay. I just wondered. Go on.
And it's supposed to move in the flow, but actually there is no flow on it, so.
Gotcha.
Arrête, chat!
And so we're looking at the main seahorse display, and it's looking beautiful. Have you had any more macros go sexual or anything, or is it doing well?
I have a lot of macros that decline, but they are growing back by themselves everywhere in the rock. Like you can see it because it looks like cyanobacteria, but in fact there is a lot of macros that are growing, red macros that are growing on the rocks here.
I see them. Did you change your light or do anything different?
No. I just saw the red macro were dying, so I let it sit in the tank in hope it will start over, and that's what happened.
And it worked. And I saw that seahorse peeking out. And for anyone watching that is seahorse, I shouldn't say. For anyone watching that likes seahorses, Lucy, can you focus on that netted pump? On the pump on the power head with the net over it, netting. Now see, that seahorse is right there, and it's just fine. So I posted a picture once of a seahorse hitched like that, and they threw a fit, and it's fine once it's covered. What is that covered with, Lucy?
She likes to sleep upside down.
Right next to the flow, huh? And what other tanks do you have going on?
What?
Do you have other systems?
I have a hard time to understand you because of the kids, so.
I know, I'm sorry.
You guys show the juvie tank.
Where's the juvie tank?
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan. Wow.
Jade, arrête. Regarde le petit hippocampe.
And these are juveniles, is that correct? Or dwarf?
Yes, they are 10 weeks old.
Wow. They're big. Look at all those babies.
I don't know.
And what was the tank? And I'm sorry. And you just have that tank set up with sponge filter. And what's up in the upper right or left corner? What is running the tank?
Skimmer.
Skimmer. Very good. Gotcha. And what was the tank that we passed on the way to the juveniles?
Tais-toi. Excuse me, can you repeat?
That's okay. Was there another tank? I thought I saw another tank with macros. Or is that it?
The small tank here.
Yes. Is that just macroalgae?
There is my reef, but no lights. And it looks terrible. So.
Terrible my butt. You've got a whole system going on here. And do you keep the tanks connected or not?
Sorry, excuse me.
That's okay. Are the tanks connected?
They are absolutely terrible. So
they're separate.
They were all day long and since a few days, so they are absolutely terrible right now.
No, they look fine. But are they all separate? Do you have to do water changes separately on them?
I can't hear you. She's crying in my ears. I just can't hear you.
I know. I'm so sorry. You know what, Lucy? Thank you so much for showing us. And if you have questions for Lucy, please comment. We just picked a really bad time because she's trying to get the kiddos to bed. So
I can't even hear you, Katie. I'm sorry, but
turn it off, Luce. It's okay. It's all right. But now we've seen the tank.
I can just hear you with
I don't know if you want to say something else or not. I'm sorry. Okay, Dan, I'm trying. Poor Lucy, she's trying so hard to show you guys.
It's tough.
I'll tell you
she's
what.
got twins, and it's tough.
And look at those babies, though. She's showing us. Aww. And the juveniles.
She's done well with them so far.
So, Dan, you probably know a lot about what she's showing us, and the little babies in the refugium setting, then they move over to this grow out tank. Is that how she's doing it?
I didn't see the other picture.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I was doing the piebalgs, but
no, that's fine.
That's the grow out tank, and so I'm behind schedule, but I was supposed to take over a bigger tank. I'm gonna give her a 55 to put them in.
Oh, how sweet!
Give her some more space.
Yes.
Well, I can't drill it. I got a 55. I can't drill. It's got. I picked it up for next to nothing, and I was planning on drilling the back wall, but it's got tempered glass all the way around. So
oh, jeez.
rather than try to sell it, she can use it. So I'll give it to her.
And that's what this is about. Is everybody helping each other. Very, very cool. Thank you. And look at all those seahorses doing so well. Yes, absolutely. Because Lucy is, of course, a partner on the Seahorse Whisperer Society. All right. Anyways, and hello, little baby girl. Don't cry at Mama. She's like, we can't hear you. But they're beautiful. They're doing well. And Dan, would you say this is a pretty efficient setup? I mean, obviously she needs more room. You're going to give her the 55, but I mean, the skimmer.
Almost any type of system can work if you're diligent with the system that you have and work it the way that it needs to be worked. It's not how I would do it, but it's how others have done it. It's how she does it successfully. So if it's working for her, it works. I mean, what can you say? She's got an in-tank skimmer, which you can see on the left. And she's got a huge air filter sponge on the bottom right. And I know she does water changes and cleanliness and all that stuff, but the big thing is the hands-on maintenance on it constantly.
Right. And that's a terrific point, because a lot of people ask about breeding seahorses, and it's not as easy as most people make it look. Lucy's in this tank right here all the time, and as we've heard, Dan's going to give her a bigger tank just to maintain, because there's no way with that many babies doing that well that she could continue without more room. So lots of ways to do it.
At the stage that they're at, they just converted over to frozen. So what's going to happen is in about the next month, these guys are going to jump about an inch per month, and they're going to start filling out, and they're going to be putting a much bigger demand on the tank.
Absolutely, that's right. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what happened to me. Is I could do the babies well, but then they'd hit this stage. You get them converted, and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, they were huge. And they were everywhere. Look at them eat. Aww. Mysis. Oh. They're doing so well. Hey, Luz, keep showing us, but I'm gonna go ahead and mute it, just so people don't hear your stuff. Your baby. I'm gonna mute you, but keep showing us. And Alex, we're gonna come back to you. I see you doing stuff. Give me just a second.
Oh, no problem. I just want to say that it's a beautiful seahorse setup, and
isn't it?
it's one thing I know you do really well is that the live macroalgae tanks, you just don't see as many of them as I would think that you would sometimes. And as much as I'd like to do that, the bad algae take over very quickly.
Right. Now you don't use macros at all? Wait a minute, what am I saying? Go ahead.
To be honest, with that live rock that I originally had, I had about 30 species of macroalgae come out of it. Mm-hmm. And then eventually it was just, some cyano and hair algae, and there's still a few of them hanging on, but it really needs to be more controlled to not let that kind of take over things. At least that's my experience with them sometimes.
No, I couldn't
There's so
agree
many
more.
beautiful macros.
I agree, and you know, with a macro tank, you do know you're going to have some issues with that kind of stuff, but a lot depends on where you buy. You know, if you buy from an aquacultured, you know, someone that's culturing them and making sure that they're not mixed in with those, you know, I'm getting too complicated. But the bottom line is it just depends on where you buy and whether it's come on the rock or whether you actually buy it on purpose, that kind of thing. So,
yeah,
I don't know. But beautiful seahorses. You're doing a fantastic job, Lucy. And all of these seahorses are going to be stallions. Red card. Red card. Okay, sorry, guys. Anyhow.
They're looking good.
Yes, very good. Look at them. They're even over there on the sponge trying to get more food. And look at the Siri on the yellow one. Lucy, I want that yellow one. That one's mine. Right in the middle. Bam. Pick him out. Dan, tell us the trouble with picking out a seahorse.
It's almost impossible. When somebody points to a seahorse in a tank like that, these guys do change their colors around some. And, you know, when I first started doing the pieballs, I put up a tank shot of them, and people were sending me back with a picture with a seahorse circled. And then when you're trying to reach in a tank with, you know, 75 to 100 seahorses and pick one out, it is almost next to impossible. I was averaging about 45 minutes per order trying to pick them. So I had to come up with a different method.
Hey, Dan, I know your pain. When I worked in a local fish store, a lot of people used to point out specific African cichlids in a tank of about 50 of them, and they'd be like, I want that one. And I'm like, oh, God, they're like the fastest things alive.
That's when you say
too.
that the trick, you guys. Now, Dan can't pull this off because seahorse people are very particular, but with cichlids, that's when you say, sure, can you go look over there for a minute and just grab one because there's no way. Oh, man, you guys, I can't even imagine. And I want to say again, Dan, that's so cool that you're helping her out with the tank because look at them jumping all over each other. My goodness. I know Tammy and a few other people, Cheryl. I know quite a few people are breeding seahorses now at a hobbyist level. And, I mean, just look at them. When they get to this point, it's like they're just crazy going over to each other. I love it. They're beautiful. And is this, Lucy, if you can tell me in the comments if you want, is this one batch or multiple?
It's one batch, but I had to kill a lot of them because I couldn't handle so much.
Okay. I just wondered because, you know, of the sizing. But that just goes to show that it's kind of like a Darwin thing, you know, the fittest survive kind of thing, you know. But they look beautiful. They're doing great. And you'll do even better with more room. I'm so excited for you. So do you have them all named?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Of course.
This is Willie, Sandra, Willie.
Absolutely. Tell Sandra I want Sandra. No, I'm kidding. All right. Well, I know they have to get to bed. And did you want to show us anything else?
No.
Okay. Well, you should take some videos of these guys hopping all over each other like this because this is beautiful and fascinating. I mean, just watching them is like magic to me. Anyways. And the seahorse treat, is that the same piece you've had the whole time, Lucy? In the back that they're all hanging on? The piece that the seahorses are all hanging on. Where did you get it?
Yeah. On eBay.
eBay? I think Chris
like
from
$1, something like that.
Yeah, I mean that's what's so cool is that these pieces are so cheap, and the seahorses love them.
Yeah.
They love those hitches. I
But you
think
can buy it for $10, for $15. The fact is, in fact, if you buy it directly from China, it will cost you like $1 or less.
right, of
So
course, and that's a whole different
it's
topic
the
right
same,
there.
exactly the same. The stuff is just you have to wait like 2 or 3 weeks for it to come, but it's exactly the same stuff that it's sold 20 times more expensive.
Yep, it's all the middlemen. Always is. But anyhow. Well, okay, I'm going to did you want to show us anything else? If not, I'm gonna
No, no.
okay. All right, well we'll make some more videos of these guys because I know a lot of people are very interested. Oh, I had one more question. How did you wean them onto frozen? How did you wean them onto frozen?
I started to put baby brine shrimps in the freezer to make them more slow.
Okay.
And so when you put them in the tank, they sink to the bottom and they move very slowly. And I start to shave and put some piece of mysis. So the mysis basically also sink to the bottom. And the fry, when they try to eat the baby brine at the bottom, accidentally eat some frozen. So they get a taste of the mysis like this, not on purpose, and they say, not bad.
You guys
So
heard it here
that's how
first. Lucy, that's genius. I've never heard of putting the Artina or brine shrimp into you said the refrigerator or the freezer? How long did you put the brine shrimp into the refrigerator?
I never really looked. I put a container with water and baby brine, and I check regularly to see how they are. And if they are all at the bottom, barely or not moving, it's okay.
So just slow down their metabolism so that they're moving
Yes.
less, so that the seahorses
Yes.
see that they're alive, but
Yeah,
they're
and
not moving around crazy. I get it. That's smart.
And they stay like the bottom, the mysis. So when they swallow the baby brine, they swallow mysis too.
Yep. That is brilliant. And Dan, I think we've had this conversation before, but it's not just the color and shape. Can they somehow sense that something is like a smell or something like it, that it's different? How do they know?
It's a great question. Supposedly they don't have an olfactory nerve. They're not. I don't know how they do it, but we did experiments when we were testing different foods and trying to work with food manufacturers to come up with a non-frozen food that people could keep and feed seahorses.
Mm-hmm.
We would put food in the tank, and when we would put the food in the tank, the seahorses would go nuts looking for the food, but they didn't recognize it as food. It'd fall right past them. But it was very clear that they sensed that there was some type of food in the water.
Gotcha. I disagree with science on this one. I mean, not disagree because you just said you could tell that they could sense something, and I know that they don't have that orifice or whatever. I tell you, they smell. They smell it because I've even had seahorses that will chow down on anything you put in the tank. It doesn't even have to be mysis. It could be Rod's food. It could be plankton. It could be anything. They'll eat anything. Literally to the point of like I dropped a fish pellet and oh my gosh, they'll eat it. But you put something in there that's bad and they won't touch it. That's got to be smell, right? How else would they know it was?
It beats me, but I can tell you that it's very clear. They know when food hits that water.
That's true. I don't doubt that part. Okay, Alex, what are you showing us?
Oh, I was just wondering if I had any activity. I do feed live foods to the tank.
Oh, wow.
I'm not going to be able to do it tonight. I just fed them, but these are my whiteworm colonies. So I feed, usually at least once a week, I try to feed live whiteworms. So.
And what did it take to make that? What did you make that with?
Oh well, it's just topsoil,
Uh-huh.
and then I feed them spirulina flake, and because they prefer to have a nice moist soil, I soak the food down, and then uh, a lot of when I first learned about these, there's a guy on Reef to Reef. His name's Paul B, and he kind of turned me on to white worms over live blackworms because they're easy to raise,
Mm.
and they're just like earthworms. They're just pretty small. But the one challenge I found with them was trying to separate them from the soil is not easy. So I kind of came up with a couple little contraptions. It's just a little deli cup lid, and they will let themselves in there with very little soil. Usually by tomorrow, it'll be filled up with white worms. So I'll just soak it in some or rinse it off in a little RO water, and there's a little white worm and spirulina cocktail I could dump in the tank, and the fish love them.
That's awesome. I love that you keep mentioning forums also, because we've had plenty of discussions on this channel about forums and how we're very sad that they don't seem to be as popular anymore, but you keep mentioning them. So see, the people with the ridiculously awesome tanks go to the forums. I love it.
Well, yeah, and it's like anything else. You definitely have to. There's a lot of opinion, and um, you know that's part of this whole hobby is there's a lot of it that's just experienced and observation based. It's not necessarily scientifically proven. So some of it you gotta, you just do your research, and if it sounds like a good idea and you want to take the chance, I guess you could say sometimes, and see if it works. It works out sometimes.
Absolutely.
But I am a believer in part of the reason I like all the pods and use the live rock and sand is all that microbial life that and macro life that comes in. It's a good natural food source that everything gets to eat with live bacteria in it, and it you know these fish are all doing real well. The corals are happy, so.
I want to say I do see the questions in the comments, and I'm going to answer them. I promise before we disconnect. But I wanted to ask really quickly, Alex, have you ever? Now, what are you doing? First of all, oh, you're feeding. Okay, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, what is he doing now?
Feeding time.
I seen something. Anyways, so my question was, have you had any trouble with anything? Has anything given you trouble due to having all the natural? Like, have you ever had any? Did you quarantine? I guess.
Well,
Did you? How did you handle that kind of thing?
yeah. So generally, I don't, and I will. Quarantine is always a really good thing. I have a local fish store. A lot of times when he gets fish from the wholesaler, I take them straight from a wholesaler bag, and they have never even gone into his tanks.
Mm-hmm.
So I a lot of it's finding good supply chain. Early on in this system, I unfortunately did get a little overzealous on myself, and I did have something get in here, and I did lose some fish. Since then, I went back to my normal of taking it slow. I generally only add fish about once a month or every 3 weeks if I do it, and make sure everybody's doing healthy. There is ick in the system. I mean, you see a spot here and there, but the fish are in a healthy enough environment to where it can't overcome their immune system. I mean, a good example, that purple tang there,
Mm-hmm.
when I got it, it was about 10 shades whiter because it was just completely covered. And I didn't attempt any kind of meds or dips. I put it in a healthy tank, and it took time, and it built up its immune system.
Hey, I'm the very last person to judge. There are so many ways to do things. With seahorses, it's a little bit different because their immune systems just aren't as good as some of these fish. But I know many people. Heck, I had Matt on just a few weeks ago, and he had a situation where his fish were all quarantined at the store. You have a situation where you like all natural and you get them directly from a good wholesaler, short supply chain. If it works, it works. I'm not gonna. I
Yeah,
don't have anything to
and,
say. You have a
and
beautiful tank,
yeah,
and good water
the
helps.
unfortunate thing is no matter how you do it, um, even people that follow very strict and strict quarantine, every now and then they still have issues. It might not happen as often, but it could still happen.
No, I'm
So
one of them. I'm one of them. I'm someone who literally set up a seahorse tank with completely man-made rock and everything else. And one of the questions in the comments was about macros, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but I'll just say that I was dipping macros. I would not put them. I had a separate macroalgae tank for growing out wild macros or whatever, but no macros would go in that tank unless I had quarantined it, dipped it, knew that it was safe, no aptasia, no anything. But I'm not a biologist, I'm not a scientist. I couldn't get out my microscope and tell if there was some bugs on it. And I something happened because the seahorses got sick. So I've been there, not to say you should not quarantine because it's always the best bet, but it's what works for you. So,
yeah, that was a good piece of advice. It's I guess I've been doing this long enough. I understand the risks I'm taking, and that's the thing. There is a risk factor with it.
Gotcha. And one of the questions in the comments, Dan, you might be interested in this one. Do captive seahorses have better immune systems than wild caught? I don't know if they still wild collect. And I want you to answer, but I don't want you to interrupt. So I want to say very quickly. No, actually, you answer. I'm going to shut up. Dan, what's your answer?
I'm sorry. I was replying to someone. What was the question?
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Do captive seahorses have better immune systems than wild caught?
I would say the immune systems are the same. What's different is the stresses that's been involved into getting them to the customer. So I would say that many of the wild caught are immunocompromised by the time that you get them.
Very good way to put it. So bottom line is wild caught would be exposed to things that we can't deal with in aquariums, whereas something bred in an aquarium might not have a better immune system, but that's where all this difficulty comes in though. If you set up a tank for seahorses and you have seahorses that haven't been exposed to things in the wild and then you mix it with wild, yikes. What then?
Well, the other huge factor that comes into play is that captive bred are used to the captive environment. So in theory, they're not going to be as stressed going into a tank, and they're going to be much easier to care for. But the stress levels should be much less. And, some of the I've seen wild caught seahorses that never really adapted to tank life.
Right. I was going to say that's actually my answer too. So thank you for backing it up, is that the seahorses born and bred in captivity just don't stress as much. Bottom line. I mean, if you put them through stress, they're going to be stressed, but they're not going to be as stressed, and stress is the thing that causes their immune system to be lowered and things to happen badly. So I agree. And Alex, what are we watching? Because we're watching all this cool stuff, and I feel like I'm taking away from it by talking.
No, it's okay. I was just trying to not get sprayed down with water by my puffer, as it loves to spit at me.
I want to see him
when it knows it's about to be.
Oh, look at it!
Hold on.
Spit at us! Oh, yay! I love it. I want a puffer.
Now, hey, you, other side over here. I see. You can see how quickly everybody's come up, including the baby clown trigger that didn't learn its lesson.
Oh, jeez.
All right, so
don't get
this is where feeding becomes a little complicated. So let me let me go through my routine here. And I will add, while I'm kind of doing this, while I don't quarantine my fish, lately I have been putting them in a dip the last 15 minutes of their acclimation, just to see if anything on the surface of them gets dropped. But again, it's like anything else. There's some risk factors with that. So
Well,
I don't recommend that anybody just go and do that.
yeah, and that's the bottom line it's working for you, no judgment here, and I'm curious to know what the dip is, but as a channel, we promote quarantine. But go on with what you were saying. Yeah. What's the dip that you use?
I just use a Paragard.
Okay.
Just because it's pretty well rounded. It's not a metal-based medication, and I found that it's fairly gentle.
I know.
Right, let's see if we can.
Yes, let's watch this very quickly and shut my mouth. Oh.
No.
Somebody stole it.
I learned his lesson. Sorry.
Don't get
I have to be
eaten,
careful.
little guy.
Usually I got to do this two-handed, and I got one set of tongs in one hand and one in another.
I know. We appreciate it though.
It's okay,
this is so cool to watch.
Now you can't really see all that great right now, but the rest of the fish are all. The big guy definitely did not have enough. Okay, come on over here. I fed a shrimp yesterday, so I don't feel too bad if some of these guys don't get more. He's greedy.
And was that one of your tricks? Like, if everybody's coming, do you splash the water so they'll go over there? They think it's food?
Yeah, well, I just moved the tongs away because I just don't want someone like that trigger there. He's just getting a little too close. So I'll back off and I'll broadcast feed their main food. It'll kind of distract everybody away, even though the porcupine went over there. See if the dog face will come over. No. Come on, you want it?
You have no idea how cool this footage is. This is awesome.
All right. No.
That's got to be so hard.
That's not the easiest thing to do one-handed, but no. Yeah, you just got the rest of it. Here, you want the little piece of...
There you go. You can tell these fish are used. I love that you can tell that these fish are used to you, and there's no fear. They're like, "Where's the food?" It's really cool.
Yeah, they. Well, I mean, like I said, I generally wouldn't necessarily feed this way, but just because, like I said, I was just holding a shrimp on tongs because those wrasses, what they do is, pretty much. The bird wrasse, the pink-faced wrasse, my Spanish hog, all those big fish will just steal it, and they'll go run away with it, but it's too big for them to break it down.
Gotcha.
And usually, the dog-faced puffer will catch up with them and steal it back and eat it. But my worry is that the porcupine gets over there. Oh, there's my cleaner shrimp. One of them.
Nice.
So these guys have been in here for there's two of them in there. The other one's hiding. They don't really come out much. Just because most of the things in here could make them a meal.
Right.
But they actually do have a little cleaning station here, and even the puffers use them from time to time. So
the fish, what you mean by a cleaning station is the fish will go sit there and let themselves get cleaned, correct?
Yep.
That's awesome. I love it.
They kind of almost have to wedge themselves on the rock because the cleaner shrimp are like, I'm not just coming out there.
Right. I love it, though. That's so cool.
At night, they'll crawl out a little bit more, but generally during the day, at feeding time, that's the most they come out.
Sure. Well, they don't want to get mistaken. And that is a beautiful trigger, but sounds like he hasn't learned his lesson there. And
no,
on the other tank, I meant to ask you when you were filming it, what is the big red dart-looking fish? I mean, I think I know, but I want to hear what you tell me. He was going way across. I mean, he was up at the top.
Oh, you're talking about my long-nosed hawk.
Yes, him. Oh, he's so cool. I'm not great with the reef.
Yeah, this guy is only about half the size that he is now when I got him. So he loves sitting on the algae cliff, sometimes in the Gorgonian or the other top spaces here.
Yes, yeah, when I've seen those fish. Sorry. When I've seen those fish before, they'll be sitting on a rock somewhere and they never move and they never do anything. Yours is active and all over the place. It's just very cool. I wonder if it's the better space, the more space, so that it can do things like that.
Yeah, they do like to really keep an eye out on things, so they like those high spots. There actually is one in here too. Let's see. There he is. Little flame hawk.
Aw. Aw.
So he hops around in here too, and like I said, this tank's got a little more of an unusual fish setup, just because it's like there's a couple of damsels, and I have 3 purple pseudochromis in here, which I know most people are like, those things are evil, and I know they are, but that's why they're in this big tank. And you usually never see anyone attempt a group of them either. So,
for those people that are just joining, tell us again how big the tank is, and you don't have to do the whole walkthrough again, but just how big is the system entirely?
So the whole thing totals out roughly about 1,600 gallons.
And press rewind, you can see he's got a whole, I mean, it's ridiculous. He can walk behind the tanks, and there's tanks on top of tanks, and this is so cool. Okay, so my one other question is there one fish that you just really, really want that you don't have yet? Or one coral? Either way.
Fish or coral I really, really want. That's a tough one there. I would probably say I don't even want to say that one. That's a hard question, because a lot of them, I kind of built these tanks so I could buy all those fish, and I'm generally not into like gem tangs or, peppermint angels, the really crazy expensive stuff.
Right.
That's a hard question.
Well,
I'm just looking at everything I got, and I'm like, I already got a lot of the stuff I really wanted. I guess something I'd like to see. There are a few more tangs that I would like to get.
Mm-hmm.
I think ultimately, if I could pull it off, it would be really nice to put like a Soho or a clown tang in this big tank as kind of like a last fish eventually. Just because it has a lot more space to swim and kind of quell its aggression a little bit, hopefully.
Sure, and you mentioned too that on the coral side, you want to do some SPS, or more SPS, sorry.
Yeah, and I've been. Let me grab my blue filter or my orange filter now, since the white's kicked off. So here's a little.
Nice.
A little more fluorescent view.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I don't know, probably one of the...
Is that a torch or a nem?
That is a sea anemone.
Wow. That is amazing.
This is a torch here.
No, I know the difference. It just I couldn't tell by looking.
Yeah. They do. Yeah, they do look pretty close. This anemone is just, it's a bubble tip without the bubbles, other than a handful of funky looking ones.
Well, it's a pretty color.
Yeah, it's pretty big too. The hard thing to remember is that because of the depth in this tank, it doesn't look quite as big as it is. That thing's probably about 10 inches across.
Amazing. I mean, do you run into that a lot where people don't really grasp how much has gone into this display and into this tank and into these tanks because
Well,
it's so big it looks little?
I think that it's I've met a couple of people that on YouTube that have had the opportunity to come over to my home
Mm-hmm.
and see it in person, and they're like seeing it on camera versus seeing it in person is a different experience.
And where do you live? I don't want to know your
Um,
address, but just yeah.
yeah, I live in Chicagoland.
Chicago. Okay, so you guys, what do you think? Should I go visit him? Because I could take some depth perception photos. I'm pretty close, so maybe I'll have to come see it for myself. But
Yeah, I think you've mentioned that you know Cruz, so
oh
I know
yeah,
him as well.
oh yeah. Well then, now that we know this is gonna happen, how cool! I'm pretty good at taking those upward angles where you're like, whoa. So we'll see. But that would be cool. I would love to come and
It's
see it.
just
Walk your
when you see
catwalk.
that's the front to back. It's like that's a I don't know. A few people have told me the fish tend to swim a little differently. You know, it's like they'll see a tang or a wrasse. They're like it just starts swimming away, and you know it keeps going away.
1010 would visit
I
again. Did Haley? Did you go visit him? Is what I want to know. Anyways, I'm sorry. Go on.
I was gonna say I know Tim and I know Tim's on a lot of the live streams or just in the chats on live streams. He's a local. He's come over before.
That's
So
awesome. Well, I'm gonna
yeah,
have to
it's
come visit. That
yeah.
decided it. I'm gonna have to, and see how we're doing. Hey, Lisa Lou. Hello, everybody. Guys, I'm probably not gonna go too much longer because I haven't had dinner. But here's link if you want it. If you want to jump in, we showed some seahorses tonight. We had Alex show his amazing display tonight. And I do need to, let me see, I think there was a couple of questions I was supposed to answer. Dan, did I miss anything?
Yep.
Dan,
I
Dan
don't think so.
ignores me throughout these whole streams and just, yep.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just wrapped up trying to get this stuff
I'm
done
kidding.
over here. It's so time consuming.
I know. Joseph, if you're still here or if you watch this later, apologies. We were going through Alex's tank. I was not able to see or answer your questions. If you have any, I know you messaged me on the side. Feel free. Otherwise, come on in and ask them. And someone asked something about macros, I know. Okay, I think it was Natural Blue, or someone asked something about whether or not you would have to dose for macros, I think the question was. Can you ask the question again, because I want to make sure I get it right. But the bottom line is that, with Alex's tank, he's not doing macros, so he doesn't have to worry about that. And wow, that's so beautiful. And in my macro tanks, yes, I did dose. But they weren't as big. I think water volume plays a big part in all of everything. When you have enough water and you have the right start, meaning whether you use Miracle Mud or whether you use live rock and live sand and stuff, no matter what, if you get the right start or are smart enough and know enough to add the right microfauna, then it makes a big difference in what you have to add later. I don't know. That's a really tough question. It would depend on the situation. For a seahorse macro tank, I've always ended up having to dose if I wanted the macros to stay healthy. However, seahorse poop is one heck of a fertilizer, and so, it all depends on the system. And we're looking at Alex's beautiful tank. Is that a top down? Makes you wonder. What are we looking at right now, Alex? What was the Was that a toadstool? What was that?
Yeah, here, hold on, let me move another cover off. Kind of talking through a screen top here as I move my viewing box down. Yeah, that's one of my green toadstools. It's probably about 5 times the size of it that it was when I got it. It was pretty small frag. So my wife has gotten me into zoanthids a bit because she really likes them. So I've been starting a garden, and then she's got a little tank upstairs that we've been slowly adding to as they grow out in this tank.
Now wait, you just made my night. You made my year, actually. So in other words, you had to keep all of your tanks in the basement, and her tank is upstairs. Oh my God, I love this. I love it. I love it. Is that right?
Yeah, she's just got a 25-gallon lagoon. She's very much just kind of starting out and trying it out as a hobby a little bit. So she likes the zoanthids. She wants to do like a zoa pally garden. So I said, well, we'll set something up for you a little to try out and see how it goes for you. And then if you want to do something more significant later on, we'll talk about it once you get this tank going.
How many clams do you have? Is that, I think I saw another one somewhere, didn't I? Or is that the only one?
I just have the one right now. I had a second Deresa, and a few months ago I had something happen in here, and I lost a few monophoras, a couple of acros, and I had been dosing quite a bit of phytoplankton, and I was experimenting with Calfosser a little bit to raise pH. And when this stuff started happening, one clam just, unfortunately, like I've kept a lot of clams in the past, and sometimes I find that once they start to go downhill, there's no coming back, and it just kind of slowly died after a few months.
Aww.
So this one actually, this is an ORA Deresa, though. I actually got it. It was probably about 2 inches long, and it's probably almost 4 or 5 inches across on its long side now, so it's grown quite a bit. They're very fast growing clams, but sometimes they just don't handle certain changes well sometimes. So
Sure. And they're calcium hogs, I'm sure. In the comments, I saw Haley came in, and I just remembered you asked me about Vibrant, why I haven't had the follow-up videos from Vibrant series up. I mentioned it in one of the streams, but I didn't do a video about it. Basically, I realized that my skimmer was not working. And so I stopped the video series and got the new skimmer part to make the skimmer work. And those videos are coming. Actually, I don't want to give away the surprises. So the videos are coming. But I saw you said something about everything came back in your tank. Message me when we're done here so we can have a discussion and talk about that further. Because I'm very curious, because I mentioned you in a stream and about how dosing phytoplankton had helped you overcome some things. And if it didn't work, I need to know. So message me. And under the weather, yes, do they need dosing? No problem, natural blue. Macroalgae, algae, it does not have an S. I apologize, people. Macroalgae, tanks, depends on what you're keeping, the species you're keeping, the type you're keeping, the reason you're keeping them. If you're doing caulerpas and stuff like that, they don't need anything. In fact, please don't dose anything because they're already going to go crazy and do very well. If you're talking about the pretty display algae, those require some things to look better. Magnesium, iron, things, it just depends on the species. If you tell me what species you're talking about or what you're trying to accomplish, I could probably help you more with that question. But in general, no, you should not have to dose for macroalgae. The micro elements would come in something, if you use Miracle Mud or even live stuff, it should come in that. And anything above that is if you're trying to really perfect a tank, if that makes sense. I'd love to talk to you one-on-one. I just hate to give advice, broadcast advice, when I'm not sure who would hear it. Because it depends on so many things, you know. So, and I hear Dan typing away, and I'm seeing Alex's beautiful tank. What else, you guys? Anything else? What are we looking at now, Alex?
Sorry, just had to perform a little rescue. My yellow chorus rest just jumped out of the tank.
No, on camera, and I missed it. I'm sitting there blabbing.
No, it went out the side.
Oh my God.
They got quite a bit of room. It went between the tanks. I just picked it up and tossed it back in. So.
Wow.
I am now putting my tops back on.
Yes. Don't let a video lose you fish. My goodness, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I do this all the time. I mean, this is the second time I've had a fish jump on me while I have the tops off, which is why I have screen tops and everything.
Gotcha.
Let's see.
I got hit in the face by a mullet one night doing about 30 miles an hour in the boat.
Jeez.
What?
Yeah.
I kid you not. I was wondering, what the heck was that? And all of a sudden you could hear it flopping around in the back of the boat.
That had to be fun.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't see him, but he probably went to the sand right away and was like, I don't want to re-experience that.
Right. They act like they
'Cause
learn their
actually-
lesson, and then they don't. I know.
Well, a few weeks ago, my red cigar wrasse here while I was feeding, it jumped out of the tank, hit the cement wall, and then fell between the cement wall of the basement and the walking platform. So I just did exactly what I did here. I ran and got a net, scooped it up, put it in a bucket of clean tank water for a second to rinse off any hair and salt and dust, and then just hop them back in the tank.
Okay, Lucy, I saw your question. I'm going to ask it in 10 seconds. But Haley wants to know from Alex, what are the big orange, blue, green corals up front?
Orange, blue, green corals.
You mean what's the scientific
these
name
are my-
from?
Well, they all were called, well, the flat bottoms were called the Weslophilia for a long time, but I want to say I read something that they got reclassified as Trachophilia.
I'm done with
Right.
the classifications, man. They keep changing their minds. You can't get a straight answer. Go ahead. Sorry.
I call them Weslophilia, so.
They're Wesophilia. There you go.
Yep.
And-
These are one of my favorite corals. So.
Now, what is the difference? Actually, I do have one question about that, because it's for us common people, it's a brain coral, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I had a brain coral that was not as upright as that. It was like more poofy and fluffy than, kind of like that one more. Do they just do what they want?
And it depends on the shape of them. Some of them, as they're smaller, will be more flat. I honestly don't know why some are shaped a little differently than others. Like this one, when I bought it, was very flat, and it's been developing folds as it's been growing. Some of them will stay pretty flat though, more often. But I honestly don't really know why.
Well, I'm sure
They are one of my favorites. They always used to be referred to when I started the hobby. We used to just call them an open brain coral.
Yes, open. And Haley, I'll tell you, when my reef was kind of going to, downhill, and I sold some of my coral, that and the clam are the two that made me cry, for real. I had a rainbow Welso. It was so beautiful. I mean, yours, Alex, yours are absolutely gorgeous, but mine, I'm sorry, was much better. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
There are. Oh, I know there's a lot. It's eye of the beholder with it. Like, but
Right.
when I first started the hobby, I remember I had one of my very first corals ever was a green one like that, which when I saw it, I was like, I gotta have that. My very first 3 corals I ever bought was a Lesophilia, some frog spawn, and a bubble coral. And I had those corals for several years, and it was not easy to sell them or give them away.
Yeah, I mean that sounds crazy to me. But really quickly, I have to ask you again. I'm sorry, but Reefaholic on Twitch. We actually had a view on Twitch, so this is very cool. They would like to know how many gallons total. One more time, sorry.
It's roughly 1,600 gallons.
And if you guys rewind this, the video will be available later. You can see him go through his catwalk. And Alex, please tell your channel, and I will link it, of course, because you've taken all this time to show us.
Alex G's Aquarium.
Alex G's Aquarium, and we'll link it down in the comments. But yeah, Reefaholic, I want to talk to you sometime. I'd love to know where all the Twitch people are. We gotta get reconnected with them. But Lucy had a question for Dan about seahorses. She wanted to know, Dan, what size of juveniles can be put with macro with possible hydroids without much concern? At what age?
That's a great question. I would probably wait till they're about 3 inches or so before I'd want to do that.
There you have it, Miss Lucy. 3 inches. So yeah, 3 inches. And that's
I don't know
how
many. I don't know how many centimeters that is, but it's roughly about 3 inches. About time where they start becoming just big enough where you could start sending them off, and it doesn't seem to bother them so much. Then I've seen younger ones the size that you have currently, Lucy, that have been affected by hydroids.
You said I'm sorry. I was doing a Dan. I was paying attention to too many other things. So you said you have seen them affected younger or older?
I've seen the ones the size that Lucy currently has. I've seen them that size affected by hydroids in the past.
Okay, I was gonna say, see, here's the problem, and I gotta say, Alex, that is a beautiful puffer. I want a puffer so bad. But Dan, with seahorses, I've seen the big ones affected. They don't die. I mean, it's not a dangerous situation unless they're dwarfs or juveniles like babies. But man, I've seen them all affected.
Well, I would expect it could affect any of them, but typically in a tank where you have the adults, there's generally not a food source to keep the hydroids going.
Okay, so it's like organics. Okay, I got it.
Usually the bigger problem in most tanks with the bigger seahorses isn't hydroids, is Aiptasia.
Okay, now wait. So wait, time out. So what you're saying is in an algae tank, in a macro tank, you could like quarantine if you wanted to and wait out the hydroids. I don't know that I'd buy that.
You can wait out the hydroids. They're going to disappear, but they're going to come back as soon as you start putting zooplankton in the tank.
Okay, so they
feed on zooplankton.
Right.
So if they don't have a food source, they're just going to drop off. But as soon as you start adding a food source, they'll come back with a vengeance.
Yeah, because in every seahorse tank I've ever had, no, that's not true. In every macro seahorse tank I've ever had, hydroids come and go. Bottom line, they always come back. They always go away. It's just never ending, and it has something to do with the macro. So Lucy, I would personally, well, you have your answers. That's the answer, I guess. Something about the macros, yeah. And with Aiptasia, Dan, actually that's another question, because someone tagged me on a post and asked, and they were trying to get me, it was Sam Banfield, tagged me on a post trying to get me to talk to somebody in Australia and explain, seahorse feeding, snicking, and they were using one of my videos to show them. And I said, I'm really sorry to be the person to comment this, but that seahorse is not just eating. It looked very much to me like it just got stung by Aiptasia. So I want to ask you just to make sure that, what you think of it. Should a seahorse, I'm trying to think how to pose the question, sorry. What is the coughing of a seahorse? What does that mean?
I think it could mean several different things. It could be a foreign object in the mouth. It could be part of food that they don't want in their mouth. It could be something in their mouth stinging them. I think there could be a number of different things. It can also be a reflexive action from some type of, neurological problem too.
Okay, but I mean, if you have a seahorse and it's fine for a while, and it goes to, and it's like all of a sudden you watch it, and it goes down to eat something that you can't see where it's behind, where it's going to, and it snicks, and it comes back up, and it's doing that, I'm not going to mouth it myself, but the snick, cough, 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 then either it's eaten something too big, it got stung by something's wrong. It's not a good thing, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, generally, and most of the time they'll fix it themselves, but
right. They could cough now, and if a seahorse is coughing up food constantly, that's bad also too. Correct?
Well, question whether they're coughing it up or spitting the heads out. I've got a couple of tanks. It always amazes me how they can do it, but I've got some that just will eat the body and spit the head back out.
I know a reed-eye from you would only eat eyeball foods, so I believe it. And Alex, please feel free to pipe up anytime and tell us what we're looking at, because we're just chit-chatting over you. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. I find all that conversation really fascinating, how those seahorses could be real picky like that. I was actually kind of curious, can they handle exoskeleton through their digestive tract pretty well, or is that something that they struggle with?
On shrimp, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
About roughly, they got a crappy digestive system. They don't have a stomach like a fish does. And it's a very streamlined system. What goes in comes out in about 10 hours, and about 24% of it's undigested. So, part of that's digested and part of it's not.
Okay. Is it something that I was just curious if they ever get blockages due to pieces of exoskeleton, or if that's something they partially digest?
No, because when they sniff, if you look at them, their snout is pretty small, and when they eat, they snick the food. They suck it in with tremendous force, and the food's macerated.
Okay.
They got their own blender already set up.
They're literally a blender, and they shoot it out the gill porthole, whatever. It's insane. They're very cool.
Yeah, they'll if you watch them eat, it almost looks like a dragon smoke coming out of the back of their head when they're eating. And once again, when this is again part of the challenge with seahorses, is that when they snick that food and you see that cloud of organic matter, about 8% what goes in their snout goes out back into the water column. The rest goes to the gut. So when you add it up, the percentage that comes out of the snout or the back of the head from the maceration plus what's not digested, 1/3 of the food you feed a seahorse ends up back into the tank environment. And a pair of seahorses can consume about 3 cubes of myces a day. So it's like dumping 1 cube of myces in the tank every day and just letting it sit. That's why the filtration scheme has to be the way it is for seahorses.
Very interesting.
I had a separate question from Holly asking how to get rid of hair algae on rocks. And I meant what I said in my response. I'm ignoring you because I don't know. We're working on it. We're doing some tests and some scientific discoveries. No, really, actually, I'm just testing out Vibrant. But I've had, honestly, if you want to know how to get rid of hair algae on rock, I would honestly refer you to Cruz, because when I first started my reef tank, he helped me get rid of everything and anything bad on my rock ever. What were you going to say, Alex? What was your answer?
Oh, I was gonna say, if you go back through my videos in early 2018 when I started putting reef lighting on here,
Mm-hmm.
if you can imagine all the branches covered in a beautiful, lush 2 inches of flowing thick hair algae, and I do have cyano in the tank now, which I don't really worry about all that much, but basically the entire bottom covered with a nice, lovely layer of green, red cyano with hair algae mixed in it. That was basically like this entire tank for several months, and then this one started getting it, and literally almost the entire bottom of this tank looked like a lawn for a few months before it all cleared out.
And so we need to go watch your video to find out how you got rid of it, or what? Are you gonna tell us the secret?
Really, what it came down to is, well, one, it was a new tank, and I know that, like, I had some Pukani rock I put in here,
Mm-hmm.
and even though I cured it, along with the branching rock and stuff, you're going to get a nutrient release initial.
Yep.
And if you continue to have nutrients come in, that could be absorbed. And even with all the hair algae and the other algae growing in the tank, my phosphates and nitrates would test 0. But all that really told me is that they were getting consumed as fast as they were showing up, basically. So it took some time of harvesting it, making sure that I was producing close to 0 TDS water, which
Yes.
that's kind of something I look at with cyano. When I start seeing it, it means I'm generally TDS creeping a little bit. And, just I don't throw massive cleanup crews at tanks to start. Like, I think this tank at the most had about 50, 60 snails in it. I got some Trochus, some Mexican turbos, and then I really started adding a lot of sea urchins slowly.
Yeah.
Well, you'll find a balance. They'll start consuming all of it, and then as you balance out your nutrients,
balance is
it just
key.
takes time.
Yes, and I'm so sorry. I don't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to comment really quickly because this stream actually goes to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter through Periscope. So if we get some random comments from people, Lucy, your admin, obviously there's a couple people with the wrenches, but if they're just asking questions, they're just from these different places that I've got this stream going. And Reefaholic from Twitch said get a tang. Excellent advice, except for if you're talking about a smaller tank. And Alex has mentioned the cleanup crew. I'm personally a snail chick. I like my cleanup crew. I think certain species of cleanup crew, Mexican turbo snails are like my favorite because they won't eat the macros. No, I could be saying the wrong kind now. I better not say that on live. Whoops, already did. But there's a whole article about certain snails that won't eat macros but will eat I'm saying it wrong. Won't eat the pretty stuff, but will eat the microalgae. That's the best way to put it. I do have a video about this kind of stuff too, but we drink wine on Wine Wednesday, so I get confused. Bottom line being, Lucy, he's coming from Twitch, and thank you for coming. And he said he just found out that he has 70 TDS. I'm trying to keep up with the comments. Lucy, need your help with that one. Scope has tang if you have a small tank. Reefaholic, sometimes we're talking about people with seahorse tanks. And in a seahorse tank, you don't want to put a tang in, period. Just not a good plan. So, or Dan, would you disagree with me?
No. I would
No?
not disagree.
Okay. All right, that works. All right.
Sorry, I'm hustling over here at the moment.
Hustle and bustle. It's good. But no, what do you do in a situation where you have a seahorse specific tank and you have rocks that are either, even though they're cured, they're releasing phosphates anyways, or for whatever reason you've got hair algae. There's 500 million different answers. People have used peroxide, In a seahorse tank, it gets complicated because you can't put in the cleanup crew like a tank or whatever. You have to rely on snails, or my personal answer has always been to outcompete the algae in a refugium. I always do a refugium with either a scrubber or, a refugium, obviously. I should have said sump to begin with. I do a sump with a refugium or a scrubber, and I just light that puppy up so that it's doing so well that it outcompetes anything in the display tank. That's been my method that's worked for me. Haley's Mexican Turbo is a freeloader. Astreos do more, Astreas, am I saying that correctly, do more work than him. That might be the one that I'm thinking of, Haley. I just know that there's certain turbos that will eat the macros and certain that won't. With all these situations, again, it comes down to whether or not you've got macros in the tank that you're trying to salvage, or whether you're, just trying to get rid of hair algae, period. And if you have a big enough tank to put a tang in or things like that, everything's different. And I agree with Natural Blue. This is beautiful pipefish, Alex. Beautiful. Dragon face, right?
Yeah. I might try to add some more in the future, and that's one thing. Like, nobody really messes with this guy, is and even in the higher current in this tank, this fish handles it remarkably well. Snakes around the rocks, or loves being on the sand.
Well, the flow wouldn't be my concern. Is that what you kept saying, that he handles the current? Because that's one thing
he handles it really well.
I was going to say that's one thing that they were just kind of wrong about. Seahorses, pipefish, all that stuff. They don't need that low flow that we once thought they did. Now, they can't get tangled up in power heads, and they shouldn't be blasted across tanks, but I don't think, I wasn't worried about that. I was more worried about it eating. But you've shown us your huge system and how it's definitely getting fed for sure, so you're doing a great job.
Oh, yeah. Well, you could see even in just watching this guy for a few minutes, I mean, and actually, I don't even know what sex this one is. I don't know how to sex them, so.
Actually, I do have one question, though, now that I'm watching as I'm talking, because I talk and sometimes don't watch. But what about the anemones? Does it just steer clear? Or
yeah, pretty much. I mean, yeah, this guy, he'll snake around in some of the softies, which they usually don't have a powerful sting, and then the clownfish don't really let anyone get too close.
Okay.
But I haven't had that problem, and this is the low flow end of the tank too. So,
well, I was gonna say I definitely wasn't trying to beat you up. The more that research is done, and the more that they learn, there are certain species of seahorses that are found in coral. They're hitting anemones. So a lot of things depend on species, and obviously that's a pipefish, not a seahorse, but I don't think there are any studies about pipefish and anemones. So, I was honestly curious, like, you could tell me, because citizen science is a real thing, y'all. I mean, we learn stuff too.
Yeah, and I would venture to guess, unfortunately, if this guy did manage to really whack it good, I mean, it probably would succumb to it. I mean, there's always that chance. I mean, even though it's just a bubble tip, and they're not the most powerful of anemones out there, but they still pack a pretty decent punch. And I do have some Aiptasia in this tank, although I am fairly active in nuking them as soon as I can.
Now, how do you nuke them?
Aiptasia X.
And it's worked for you?
Yeah, I run two Gyre 250s in here that are on. They're on 100% random. I'll turn them off. They got a 30-minute timer that's off. I'll just make sure that that's off, and then when I hit the Aptasia, I just make sure that I try not to trigger it to get that close reflex because you want it to ingest. It's not 100% successful, but I find I probably see them about 80-90% successful.
Well, I think you nailed it, and I think that what matters is whether or not the Aptasia actually eats the juice or what, whichever thing you're.
I literally like cover them in it too, so it's not like a light dose.
So you cover them in it, and for some reason, I thought the reason that it always failed for me was because if they realize that you're trying to kill them, then they stress out and they, release their spores and blah, 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 blah. But the bottom line is, anytime I've watched anemones eat Joe's juice, Aptasia X, all that lemon juice, vinegar, blah, 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 never works for me. Never has. So I was just wondering why it works for you.
It almost makes me wonder too sometimes if it's just different. Is it, even though they look the same, are they really the same thing? Is it a different species that's just difficult to identify? I mean, it's just a theory, but it's something I always think of is that, it's like asking why is one person's reef tank successful or what they consider successful when another sets it up the same way and it's not. Part of the thing I always look at with these tanks, which that's the guy that jumped, so he's out and about still. So
yay,
that's good.
Yes.
But one of the things I always look at these tanks, and it's like there are so many variables to a reef tank that it's almost impossible to calculate everything that's going on. Just because it's not necessarily big things, it could be very little things too. I mean, microfauna, when I put a scoop of sand under the microscope, which if you have me on another stream, I'll hook up the microscope and we could live stream through there.
Oh, yes, and we're doing it. But go ahead.
You could see all the different type. I take a little bit of macroalgae and there's thousands of pods and other microfauna swimming around in there. You take a scoop of sand and you see a whole different slew of other animals like ostracods, and it's how much of a role does that small life play in the grand scheme of things? Because while they are tiny, their biomass can actually be fairly sizable. When you look at all of them put together, I mean, even the mysid shrimp, I mean, there is a ridiculous amount of them in this system. So let me see. Oh, we've gone to all red at night here. Let me see if they're starting to come out more. Yeah, there's a mysid right there. I don't clean the glass in this tank too often, so. But, I mean, let's see. Is anyone surface swimming tonight? Not yet. But I mean, even all this macroalgae that's in, or chaeto mostly that's in here. I mean, there's just stuff crawling everywhere.
Yeah. What do you guys think in the audience? Do you want Alex to come back and show us his microscope? Give me some votes. I mean, I already know he's doing it, Dan. I'm trying to get some feedback. Come on. I want people to want it.
That's why I was curious, like that's one thing with the, seahorses. I mean, they eat a lot of microfauna, and so I was kind of interested in some of the different foods, things like ostracods. I see those and I'm like, that's kind of an interesting, they're very alien looking when you see them.
I have a very good idea. I happen to have the luck of going to and attending some pretty big events, and I have a few people that might be able to answer these questions. So what I need is for you guys to make a post, share a post, say a post. I don't care how you do it, but you guys tell me which person you would really love to see come into Wine Wednesday next week and maybe tell us what we're looking at in Alex's scope, if that makes sense. Did that make sense? Like if we could have somebody come in as an expert and say, oh no, this is what this is what that is. Who would you like?
We could play the game. What is that?
Yes. Or we could have a couple of people. And what is that? So tell me who you would like for me to bring in. And if you don't tell me anything, I'm bringing a few people in. Because this will be cool. That would be very cool. And we could see if they can tell just by looking. Of course, now they'll all say no because they'll be like, I'm not being put on the spot like that. Heck no. But we'll still try. We'll still try. Because I think it's so cool that you're even bothering. And I agree with what, oh gosh, I've lost the name. Natural Blue said is that microfauna is the foundation in certain situations when you're talking about a reef tank. You know, seahorse tanks, different thing. Sometimes microfauna is a bad thing, but in reef tanks, definitely microfauna is like the base for sure. So you're doing good things, and I'm gonna work on getting. Alex, can you message me when we get off of here? Actually, just stick around, and when I close,
Yeah.
I'll talk to you on the side real quick, and we'll see if we can't just do this microscope type Wine Wednesday. That'd be very cool. A lot of people like the idea and seeing. And Dan,
I was going to say we could even go as far as to say, where do you want to take a sand sample from, or detritus sample, or algae sample? There's all kinds of fun stuff in here.
I was going to say, this is like the scientist's dream, but they won't be like being put on the spot. So we'll see what I can come up with. We'll see. We'll see. I'll leave it there. Lucy, anybody else? Did I miss anything? Is there anything else that we need to cover? Dan, did I cut you off at all? Is there anything else you need to cover aside from check out the Seahorse Source Piebald post that he's been working on the entire time he's been talking to us? Is there anything else?
I've already sold a bunch of them. That's why I've been so busy.
Yay.
No, I'm good.
Okay. I want to thank you again, Alex, for showing us your beautiful tanks and setup on this Wine Wednesday. Lucy, for showing us your beautiful juveniles at Sandra's mine. Was that her name, Sandra? Anyways, the pretty yellow one. She's mine. And thank you guys all for coming and participating. Reefaholic, we don't talk about Trump here. Trump is a bad word. Sorry. Nice try, though. And maybe someday. But for today, I'm going to bid you all adieu. And we will pick this up next week. Maybe we'll talk Trump, or maybe we'll talk microscopes. We'll see. But happy Wine Wednesday, all. We'll see you next week. Maybe we'll do some microscope fun. Everybody say your goodbyes. I'm doing the cheers.
All right.
Good night.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
All right. See you guys next week. Cheers.